Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 8, Episode 3.
Welcome back, friends. Today we travel to Los Angeles to hang out with a certified life and success coach, at least one on the way. She's a glow-getter expert, a passionate dancer, model, speaker, and now author of her new book titled Solo Jump. Welcome to the show, Solange Zindzi.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you for coming to my hotel in Hollywood, and we get to record this is the first time we're recording this trip, so I'm really excited to kick this whole thing off. It's going to be a busy week.
Good.
So who are you and what are you passionate about?
I am Solange. I'm a girl from Amsterdam, Europe. I am mixed, so my dad's from Curacao. I've always been pretty happy. Of course, we all have problems and issues in life, but in general, I try to keep my frequency up and going, and I am known as the sunshine between my friends and family. I moved to LA 4 years ago. Have traveled the world, been to more than 50 countries, and came to LA 4 years ago, and then was on a world tour. And due to the pandemic, I lost my job and went back to Curacao in between and back to Europe. And now I'm back in LA trying it again.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic kind of threw everything off, and we'll get to that a little bit. I just went to Amsterdam for the first time.
Did you?
Yeah, and not on purpose at all.
Really?
So I went on a solo trip to Croatia, which was cool. And I was told by Travelocity that all I needed was my vaccination records to go, that I didn't need to get tested for anything.
Yeah.
And since I already was vaccinated, I'm like, oh, I should be good. So I go and I'm there for 10-ish days by myself. I go to fly back and they make me get tested at the airport and I test positive for COVID anyways.
No way.
Yeah. And so the guy was this nurse, he was wearing his hazmat suit. We're out in this parking lot at the airport. He pulls me to the side and has me sit in this chair in this gravel parking lot by myself, just off to the side. He's like, someone will come talk to you soon. So then they come out, set a chair opposite me, and then hand me these papers. And he's like, so you tested positive for COVID-19 and this is what's going to happen. And I'm a single parent. I got kids back home. I got my business back home. And I'm like, what am I going to do?
Panic mode.
Yeah. So I had to sit there for a solid more than an hour before the Red Cross came in this big armored van. Dude wouldn't come anywhere near me and open the back of it or whatever. And I'd go sit in it. They drove me to this hotel designated for quarantine, which was not nice. And I was put in a room that was supervised by myself for 8 days to quarantine. No microwave, no fridge. I had to drink water out of the tap. It took them 4 days to give me toothpaste. It was absolutely miserable. Anyways, when I finally was good to go home, I got the letter from the government saying okay, you're good to go. You can fly. I had to pay for a new flight, get to the airport, show them the thing. They're like, cool. My connecting flight now is in Amsterdam, right? Mm-hmm. Get to Amsterdam. They wouldn't let me get on my connecting flight.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because it had apparently been 9 days instead of 10 days since my positive COVID test. So even though the Croatian government said I'm good,
you still needed that one extra.
Right. Which was really silly because I already, clearly I don't have anything. I just rode on the plane anyways. And now instead of just getting on my plane home, I got on public transit amongst everyone to go to downtown Amsterdam. And so I'm I guess I might as well make the best of this trip. So I took a quick nap at my hotel, which was the one right outside the main train station, whatever that Ibis was,
Yeah.
And then I went and took the little canal tour rides, and I went and had beers sitting on the canal, checked out the red light district, just probably walked close to 10 miles, clearly not sick on the last day of my trip. So anyways, that was a long-winded story, but I didn't mean to go to Amsterdam, but it was really, really cool.
Yeah, you enjoyed it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though the situation, of course.
Yeah, it was kind of like that ray of sunshine. It's you were there in your own way of being look, this place is actually pretty cool, even though you just had this horrible experience. You might as well end everything on a really positive note.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Was it good weather, though, when you were there?
I mean, it rained briefly. That was maybe an hour, but to me, it was warm. I don't know. It seemed perfect. And it would have been better, obviously, if I had company and had me and somebody else could ride bikes around. And I didn't get to see any museums, which I would have really liked to, but it was a very walkable city.
Yeah.
And I got to see a lot. It was kind of like Barcelona in that way, where you could really walk around quite a bit.
Everywhere. And that's why we do everything with bikes, because it's just so easy to get around.
Yeah.
Walking, biking.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, going to Amsterdam with good weather is a completely different experience than going to Amsterdam with bad weather.
Sure.
So that's why I checked up on that.
Sure.
Because for me personally, I love my city. cloudy.
Yeah.
But 70% of the year it's gray, the weather. And it has such a big influence on me. But when the sun is shining, I'm like, I'll never live anywhere else. This is where I want to live for the rest of my life.
Sure. Yeah, the other 30% of the time, is it like Scotland, where it's just kind of
Yes.
like dreary the whole time?
So no, 70% is dreary, or how you call it in
Oh,
English.
70% is
And
dreary.
30% it's nice.
Sure. Okay, so getting back to this, how can people best follow you, see the stuff that you do, get a hold of your book, get in contact with you if they wanted to try to?
On my website, solangezindzi.com, or Instagram. I'm having, probably by the time this is out, I'm having meditations on YouTube. And I have a Spotify playlist with music that I like, that motivates and inspires. But mostly my story and inspirational content is on my website and on my Instagram.
And how do you spell your name? Nobody else has your name, right?
Yeah.
Versus my name's Chris Johnson. You can't find it. Like, I've been trying to get verified, and I feel like that's part of the reason it's difficult for me, is because everyone's named my name. Yours is unique. Can you spell it for us?
SOLANGEZINDZI.
Perfect. So even if somebody messed that spelling up, they'd probably be able to find it, which is pretty convenient.
Normally, when you put in Solange on Instagram and you put a Z behind it, I'm the first one that pops up.
Okay, perfect. So the meditations, is it going to be guided meditation where there's video of you kind of like talking at the camera type situation?
No, I'm going to just do So a friend of mine who is doing the music, and I'm going to do the speaking audio.
Are we talking about Marcus Shields?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a guest on the show. Yep.
Yeah, so we're working together. So he's doing the music. So we really are the only people in the world with this meditation music. And we've been studying really what works, I think, for us really well. And then I'm going to do the audio. And then the video, I haven't completely decided yet, but it's probably going to be one video with me and with my back, because mostly when people do meditations, you don't really watch the videos anyway.
Yeah, you
it's
close
more
your
about
eyes.
the audio. So I just want to focus really on the audio and the sound, and then the video is just extra. But I put it on YouTube, so it's easy accessible for everybody.
Sure. Curious, how many languages do you speak?
2.5. I speak English, Dutch, and then on my island they speak Papiamento,
Okay.
which is a mixture of Spanish, English, Dutch, made up. And my family speaks that, so I understand most of that, but I always answer in Dutch.
Do you do like the meditations? Are you going to do English and then a second version in Dutch?
No, just English.
You're kind of putting
Yeah.
everything out in
With
English.
this accent and all.
I feel like it's a very relaxing one. You know, like for a long time, everyone normally hates their voice. At least that's like people's initial reactions, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't like mine either. And then when I started doing this, all of a sudden I started having people comment on it and go, wow, you really have a radio voice. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't think that, but thank you so much. And now I'm like, I've had to listen back and edit so many hours of me talking that
Yeah.
I'm kind of like used to
Used
it.
to it,
But
right?
you have a great voice for it. It's like you have that little spice to it, but it's very easy to still understand.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very ideal. So, quick, I want to ask about Marcus. I know that you guys were I'm assuming you're on the same world tour with Cheyenne.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so how do you know Marcus? What kind of role has that friendship been like?
So I actually met him on tour. I had never heard about him or seen him before we did audition. And it was a friendship that grew slowly. So of course on tour you start to hang out every day, you with each other every day, and the people you work with automatically become your family. That doesn't mean that you straight away have a click with everybody. But I feel like me and Marcus, I like to go deep in my conversations. One of the reasons I'm probably sitting here. And me and Marcus, we always went pretty deep in like, where do we want to go? How do we feel about life? And yeah, that kind of, at some point you resonate to certain things together and
Sure.
kind of build our friendship.
How long was that tour before that? Because it ended because of the pandemic? Like it was still
Yes.
going at the time?
Yes.
Okay, how long was it before that?
So we started in summer 2018. We had a few breaks, like sometimes 6 weeks or sometimes like, I think once we had 2 months of break. And then we were supposed to go on till summer 2020. And then, of course, in March, I remember I was in LA and it was like, we're supposed to go to Argentina, but it's canceled. So we're going next week to Bolivia. And then next week was, we're supposed to go to Bolivia, but it's canceled. I think the show is canceled. I think the tour is canceled. And then,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and then everything kind of shut down at that
Yeah.
point. Okay, so going back, Europe, I've traveled enough. Like, I don't know, let's think. I've been to, Japan, Scotland, England, Spain, Thailand, Peru, Amsterdam, Croatia. I think that's the list internationally that I've been, and I've been all over the country. But one thing I've realized is you learn a lot when you travel to different countries, and nobody has it perfect, right? The grass is always greener, at least,
Always.
whatever, that's what it seems to be, but they all have their own issues. But there are certain things that, like, when people are well-traveled, they learn a lot because they can pick certain things from different areas, right? When I went to Tokyo, I was like, no one should own a car. Cars are stupid. And this is like just an ego play. Why are we even doing that? You know, and I come back to America and it really is. Like, that's how it is. We're all signing these like 6-year, you know, whatever, paying on our cars for 6 years when really there's no reason to even have one in the first place for half these people. It's just, we're doing that wrong. What were some of the things about growing up in Amsterdam that now that you kind of have a perspective, what were some things growing up over there that you're really glad you had those, you know, growing up through the years?
That's a very good one because I've been appreciating home more and more. Because in the beginning, I was always like, "Oh, we're like a big small city, right? We're a world city, but we're a very small city."
Yeah, the population's not that big, right?
We have like I think it's 17.5 million people in Holland,
Right.
But for a world city, because almost everybody in the world knows Amsterdam, we're very small.
Yeah, what is it, 80,000? No, more
I'm
than
not
that?
even sure.
I really don't think it's very much.
I feel like everybody in Amsterdam knows everybody. Like
Sure.
we all connected in one way. But what I've been appreciating is I think we in Amsterdam really know how to have fun. And it sounds silly because you think everybody in the world knows how to have fun. But we have this word gezellig. And I actually cannot translate it into English. And I think because people don't understand the feeling. Because it's a mixture of coziness and you can have fun. Like gezellig means you can have fun at home with one person. Or you can be like a big rave. But anyway, the way we have fun, I've really been appreciating that. Because I've realized that, especially, for example, here in Hollywood, the first times I went out here, I almost wanted to cry. I was like, damn, is this how you guys go out? Is this a good night to you? So that's one thing I've really been appreciating. Another thing that we do, I don't think it's actually my personality, but I understand that it's a good system. Like Holland is pretty safe. We have a good health insurance. The schools are very like payable. It's not like America that you have to go in debt to study. And I think the older I'm getting and you start to think about maybe one day I'm not a mom yet, but I want to be a mom. You do think, oh my God, how am I going to do all those things? I'm so happy to hear that Amsterdam actually sorted all that stuff out pretty well.
Yeah. From my experience, I mean, in America, we very much are brought up like, I don't know if you've probably heard the term keeping up with the Joneses. Are you familiar with that? Okay. So keeping up with the Joneses is like a common term in America because the whole idea are the Joneses are your neighbors and you want to have better things than them. Ooh. You don't want to be left behind. When they get a new car, you need to get a new car.
Interesting.
Like if their lawn is perfect, your lawn should be perfect. So we're brought up in a very competitive lifestyle.
Gotcha.
Like that's the atmosphere. That's kind of how we're supposed, I don't know, how we look at things. It's not very community driven.
Yeah.
Which could just be because of our capitalist society, but it's very much brought up like, what is your status versus the other person? We compare each other to other people a lot, which I don't think is very healthy. You know, I personally don't enjoy that. And with my kids, I think it's kind of tough. Like I'm scared watching them grow up. They're 5 and 8. I have 2 girls.
Oh, wow.
And so they're kind of getting to the point where like they're, you know, more aware of what's happening around them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stress, you know, that comes from that. And you know, I know you lived in New York. And now you've been living here. I would say those are like the 2 most competitive cities I'm aware of.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there's a reason.
Picked them out.
Right. I fly here for like 5 days and I'm like, oh my God, I need to go home. You know, where we live out in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is about 90 miles east of Minneapolis, if you're familiar where Minneapolis is.
Yeah.
And maybe like a 5-hour drive north of Chicago, something like that. But we only have 60-some thousand people where we live.
Gotcha.
And it's called Eau Claire in French. That's clear water. It's on the confluence of 2 rivers.
Okay.
So it's tons of trees, water. It's just like really quiet, like space.
Yeah.
And it's not competitive in the kind of way that it is here. Here you go out. It's everyone's kind of networking and like feeling each other out. Like, what can you do for me? And I get why. It's because the cost of living is insane here. You know, to be able to get by, you have to do that. But I would say that's not all of America. That's like these types of cities that it's like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the thing is, what I like to always do is do a helicopter view. Like when I zoom out, I'm like, I understand why people behave like this. Doesn't mean that I agree with it.
Right.
But I can see from a different perspective what people's intentions are. And in the end, I realize it's a survival modus, right? Everybody's just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. But then it's like what I need to go home once a year to Curacao, the islands, or Amsterdam, because I need to be able to put my feet back on the ground and realize, who am I? How do I like to live? Because sometimes you can just get blinded by this behavior, let's just call it like that, of just trying to be better. And people don't really, it's like they don't really take care of each other. It's more like, if you can help me because it's going to benefit me, I will help you. But if it's just so I can help you to make myself feel better, I probably just stay home.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because really I like to have the mindset of like, if it's not hurting me, like if it's not really costing me anything, sure, like I can help. Why not? Because you never know when that person's going to say, who knows? They may say something nice to their Uber driver, who then says something nice to their cousin at at a holiday, who then goes, oh, I've heard of that person. And now they go shop at your store or something.
Exactly.
The karma's a real thing, even just statistically speaking, it's going to happen.
And also, I feel like a lot of people need to understand that it feels really good to help somebody.
Yeah.
And I feel like in all parts of the spectrum that I'm like, I've been in good situations, bad situations. And when you find somebody that's willing to give you a hand to help, it feels so, so good. Mm-hmm. So I feel like sometimes people have to understand that if you can help somebody without actually it's been such a big effort for you to do something, just do it, because you might change somebody's life, like you really do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 100% important. I want to go back to, you mentioned, I guess you didn't say it in this way, but self-reflection time, right?
Yeah.
By like going home. For me, my house is it's so different than this space. So I have a grandfather clock in the corner. I have a fireplace with like my mantle and stuff with my world map above it. I have 85 houseplants last time that I counted.
Oh, damn. I love it.
And I have a little hot tub on my porch. I have a very like relaxing, calming space because I need that. Because I normally live so fast paced between, like I said, my kids. I own a skateboard shop, so I have my full-time business. I have this show, and I just like have all these things going on, so I'm always moving. I need to have like a really quiet space. I know like you're not fully certified yet. We'll get to that about the life coaching thing, but how important is it that you would, at least to like impress upon others, how important is finding time for self-reflection?
It's everything. Because also a lot of times you don't really know how you work on autopilot until you actually create that self-reflection and become aware of your patterns or how you're doing certain things or your reasons behind your actions. And once you actually enter that world of self-reflection and you become more aware of what you're doing, it actually is life-changing.
Yeah, that's how you even like feel anything, right? Like I was kind of going on a whole spree of reading these self-help books, and a lot of like I got kind of on the self-awareness thing. That was a minute for me. So I've recommended this book a bunch of times. It's called Wake Up by this guy Chris Perez Brown. But anyways, in it were like all these practices about like there's like 50 practices or whatever to do, where it was like a week long, no TV, and kind of see how it affects you or whatever. But basically what it impressed upon me was do like one thing at a time and just like focus on it. And I found that even meals were better. Yeah. Because you just were like, okay, I'm not going to do anything else except actually eat this food. I'm not going to sit on my phone while I do it. Right. And then everything, you start to appreciate it more. But when you get in that autopilot moment, you stop appreciating even the cool stuff that you're doing because you're not feeling it anymore. You're just so desensitized. You're just kind of like going through it, you know, which sometimes is nice when it's like, you know, you have like this huge chore that's going to take you 8 hours, like cleaning. It's kind of nice to get in a zone and like forget you're doing it. But for the most part, like you can't even enjoy the things without getting there. I want to talk about the dance thing a little bit, because obviously that's been your whole career really up to this point, and now you're pivoting, like the famous word this whole last year, but still now you're kind of going to a different direction. But when did dance kind of like become part of your life? At what age, and what was the role in it? Like did you start right away with like ballet lessons or something, or what was that kind of role? So I grew up in the beginning of my years only with my mom, and my mom loves music, so there was always music in the house, and I just always danced. I was always dancing. And then basically when I was 4, I went into dance class. And then when I was 11, when I started high school, I went into a pre-college, like pre-dance college. So I was dancing every weekend, like 20 hours, I don't know. And then when I was 16, I auditioned for a bachelor school of dance, like Performing Arts Institute. And that's when I went to college for 4 years. And then At the age of 16, you started college?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was 16 when and then it was summer. My birthday's in summer. So I was 17 starting college. Sure. And then I was 20 when I finished, because I finished 4 months earlier because I got a job on a cruise ship. So actually my thesis and stuff I did from America, even though I was still in college.
What was that job opportunity like? How did that come up, and it was on a cruise ship, but what did that kind of look like?
So basically I was in Amsterdam, and it was an American company, and they went to Amsterdam to do auditions. And I kind of did it because I was curious. So I always kind of was like, what is out there? And then I actually booked a job. And it was a 9-month contract, but I was still in school but they kind of, you go to school to get the job. So I had this whole interview with my head of school of like, I'm going to school to get the job, so I want to do the job now. And they were like, well, you have to finish the paperwork and you need like your thesis and everything. And then I said, but it was the time that we just started doing all the digital stuff. And I was like, well, I can do this from America, right? I can do things through Skype. I can send everything in through email. And I kind of was the first person on my school that they allowed to do that. And I went to Florida, was in Florida for 6 weeks to rehearse. And then I started dancing on cruise ships.
So this would have been 2010-ish?
Yeah, 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 years ago already.
Yeah, yes.
Wow. So yeah, it sounds kind of crazy. So what was what kind of dance was it? Was it with like a big group? Was there like a dozen of you, or like what were the performances kind of like?
It was 4 girls, 4 guys, and then 4 singers, and then 2 gymnastics, and then we had a live band. And then it depended on the show. Like sometimes we had a very like 70s show. Sometimes we had like an element show. So it was all about modern. And we did aerial, like I did bungee and web in the show. More like, I guess, a bit Cirque du Soleil style.
Oh, okay.
It just depended on the audience of the ship, the where the ship was going, and then depending on that, they added shows to the cruise ship that would match those people.
So the roughly dozen of you kind of already had all these different routines, and
Yeah.
depending on the situation, it was like, okay, well, today is routine A or B or whatever.
So the good thing was we kind of learned 5 shows, and then that was it. So if you had a 5-day cruise, you worked every day. But if you had a 23-day cruise, you worked 5 days.
Oh, and you had to hang out the whole time.
Yeah, because you have what you learned,
Sure.
right? So that was pretty cool.
Is that how you filled a lot of your passport, with visiting different countries through that?
Through that, yeah, a lot, and the tour.
Okay.
And then also, because I love to travel, a lot of times when I was in between jobs, I always decided to travel. So
Sure.
let's say I finished a contract and I had 2-3 months no work. I always would go first on holiday, and then I would go home and figure out my life.
Sure. So how did the transition then? So you must have finished your schooling while you were doing the cruising, the cruise trip thing. I know. Okay, so this is my understanding: is at some point you were trying to get this visa forever. You got it, got to New York. That wasn't where you wanted to be. So then you left, went on different things. Eventually, you got to LA. But how did the transition happen from being on the cruise to then? Well, I guess the next steps of that. Fill me in a little bit as far as like job stuff. Did you just get a job immediately with Cheyenne? That was later, right?
No. Yeah. So actually, very funny in my life. This is why also second part of my book is Everything Happens for a Reason. Is things happen in my life very specifically that it's pushing me another corner. The same with the pandemic now made me write my book and do life coaching. I was working on cruise ships, very happy, was not planning on leaving. And then suddenly I had a 6-month contract, and 2 months in, they said, oh, we need to renovate the theater. Everybody's basically losing his job. And I have an apartment in Amsterdam, but I was subletting it. And I was like, well, I can't go home. I actually was supposed to have a job. I'm not having a job. I did save some money. I always dreamt of living in New York. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to New York on a tourist visa. I went to New York, ended up working under the table in a bar. That's how I survived. And I was just living life. And while I was there, I actually realized I love this. You know what? Maybe I should start to see how it's possible for me to actually work legally in the country. And that's when I started the process of my visa. But it was so much work that it took me 2 years. So I ended up flying in and out on a tourist visa, like 3 months in, out, come back, 3 months in, out, on and off, did that for 2 years. And then I basically finally received my visa, went back to Germany because I realized all the work was in LA, not in New York. So I went back to Germany to figure out what I want to do, came back to LA, and then 3 months in, I did audition for Cheyenne and booked a tour.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so that's
it's
how
a little bit of a...
Sure. Were you still dancing then? Like, you're doing under the table stuff. Were you still like actually performing and stuff throughout that time?
I wasn't. I did one cruise ship contract in between.
Okay.
So in those 2 years, I went one more time on a ship. And besides that, it was just little jobs. Like you have this thing called carnival in the dance world that a lot of people do. Or if somebody I knew, you know how your network works, that needed a dancer for a specific performance, I would do it. And I would take dance classes, but I wasn't performing.
Sure. You're kind of just keeping your body where it needed to be for
Yeah.
all that. Okay, so you're dancing with Cheyenne. At what point did you kind of think you wanted to move away from dancing? Was it was that premeditated while you were still
I didn't
doing
want
that?
to.
No, not at
No.
all. Okay, so then you got these phone calls saying like, okay, we're going to Bolivia. Okay, well now maybe we're not. Well, now we're going to do this. Well, okay, so maybe in 3 months we'll get back to it, whatever. A lot of people kind of then just like sat for a while. Did you come back to LA right away and then stay in LA, or like you went off the tour and went straight back to Amsterdam? How did it happen?
I actually, to be very specific, because I'm very impulsive. So I found out, I remember very well, Thursday night, I found out we lost the tour. Thursday night, I booked my flight for the next day. And the next day I flew out to Curacao, which is the island my dad is from. And I stayed there for 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, so kind of we didn't know what was going to happen, right, with the world. So I was like, well, if the world's going to go down, I might as well be on a beautiful island with my family.
Sure.
But I went there, and then while I was there, because through the years, because of the life path that I've been choosing, a lot of people have told me through the years they like how I do life or how I respond to life. And they find me a very inspiring person and kind of always advised me about how I deal with certain things. And that became kind of the drive of, you know what, now that I have this time and people always reach out to me, maybe I should start putting on paper how I do life. And that became the inspiration for my book. And that became the responses of my book, became the ripple effect of becoming a life coach. But my heart, that's why I came back to LA, is still like, I kind of still want to dance. I'm not ready yet to completely make the pivot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it went.
I think a lot of people have multiple streams of revenue though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of normal.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, well, because then you're not like so stuck doing the same thing every day because you can get burnt out doing anything.
Yeah.
It like doesn't matter how much you like doing it, right? That's why you talk to a lot of artists and they don't even like doing art that much because they have to do it all the time. So when you can kind of split it up, it's nice. Like with myself, I have income coming through my store, so I can go hang out at my skateboard shop, right? Or I can go, like I just finished painting this mural at this one person's store, so I got paid to do that. Yeah, it was really sweet. Cool. Thank you. So do some of the art stuff. I make a little bit of money off the show, so all of a sudden I'm taking a week out in LA, and so it all stays kind of fresh.
Yeah,
you know, because I'm working on different things.
I think that's what we're learning nowadays too. Like I feel like 30 years ago, it was like you pick one job and that's what you do for the rest of your life.
Right.
And I think that this generation, including us, is learning that you actually don't have to commit to one thing only, and you can embrace all your talents.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so. One other thing I'm interested in, because I didn't really have a ton of like support from my family, I guess. So I worked a regular corporate job back in the day. My last job I worked for was Verizon, you know, the cell phone carrier.
Yeah.
So, and that was a very like, I got overpaid for what I was doing. I just didn't like what I was doing because obviously it's not a company that benefits the world in any kind of way. So it kind of like killed my soul a little bit. But I didn't have a lot of like, my parents weren't telling me like, yes, you should go do this thing that you want to do. They more were like, are you sure you want to walk away from like consistent money and stuff? How is your family kind of like, obviously they must have supported dance because of, you know, you were doing it since you were young, but how have they kind of like supported you through this time frame, this kind of transition? Is it pretty encouraging? Are they kind of like questioning what you're doing?
I think, well, mostly my mom, but I think I scared the out of them all the time. But in general, I think in the beginning they were very scared. They did supported me in my dream of dancing, but I did have the talks at the dinner table with my family of like, but what if it doesn't work? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But meanwhile, they did give me a chance, kind of. They were like, we'll give you a chance. If you want to do the dance, we'll just let you do it, but be aware that you need to provide at some point, your family, whatever. But because I kind of booked a job when I was still in college, it created a little bit of trust. And then I think through the years, because dancing is so inconsistently with like money and everything, they figured out that I always make it work. And also with the visa, it was so impossible kind of, but I made it happen. And then even when I moved to LA the first time, I came here with like $3,000. And everybody was like, oh, she's coming back in 2 months, like, or 2 weeks, whatever. But I always made it happen. And I think because of that, like now my mom is like, you'll make it happen. I don't know how. I'm not even going to worry about it anymore.
Sure.
And I think, I do believe the support, like I'm mainly talking about my mom. I do feel like she always said, I believe in what you want to do because I know you're going to work hard for what you like and what you want. And I think those sentences gave me the confidence to continue putting in the work.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have those support systems.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily having somebody like bankroll you or anything, or having a mentor, not necessarily even. It's just like the biggest thing is being able to believe yourself that you can do it.
Yeah.
And if you have at least those, people talking to you, speaking those positive affirmations into your brain, it kind of helps you with that stuff, I think, a little bit.
Well, I feel like, because my mom is so different than me in personality, it's like she would never take all these risks. She's more of a, she's had the same job for 43 years. She did evolve a little bit, but I feel like I admire her in her consistency and in her hard work and dedication, and that inspires me. And I think I inspire her of just thinking bigger and dreaming bigger. And I think the love in that is supporting both of our worlds.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, they want what's best for you, right? It's funny because my dad worked for the DNR, which is the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
So he worked for the government his whole career. And he never once talked to me about entrepreneurship. Never.
Yeah.
Right? And it was several years at least into me owning my own business that he made an offhand comment that if he had to go back and do it again, he would work for himself. And I'm like, oh, really? Never heard you say that before. But he could see how all of a sudden I have all this like kind of freedom with what I do. Not that I work any less hard, but I just kind of have more freedom to kind of like do the different things that I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm curious for traveling. I know it's a little bit like off topic as far as your career goes. What are some of your favorite places that you visited? And were there any specific things you learned from traveling, like other cultures or whatever, that you were like eye-opening, like, oh my God, I need to incorporate this into my life?
Well, yeah, of course. Well, it's always hard, actually, I think, to pick places that I really, really love, because I've learned through life that places you love often have to do with the people you were with.
Sure.
So, for example, for me, when I was 20, I went to Bermuda for like 6 months, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's one of my favorite places in the world, but I know that other people might go there and go, man, this island is like so small. What are you going to do here? But I was with such a good group of people that this experience became just so magical for me. So, that way, I feel like it's very subjective, but Bermuda has a big imprint on me. I love Peru. I love Buenos Aires, actually. Well, my dad's from Curacao. I still think it's heaven on earth. Tell everybody to go there. And then again, in Europe, I would say I love Barcelona. You've been there, you said.
If I had to move to any city in the world, that's the one.
Yeah, I think too. Amsterdam, of course, if the weather was great, it was number one. Because of the weather, I guess it's number two. But Barcelona is definitely...
It's an incredible city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually not that expensive to live there. Everything, that's by far of all the cities I've visited. That is the one that I could actually see myself living in.
Yeah.
If you had to retire somewhere, like if you were just theoretically, you're way too young to retire, and obviously I'm sure you have a million things you want to do. But if all of a sudden everything shut down, you had to stay in one place, is Barcelona where you would stay then?
No.
Where do you think you'd go?
Well, at the moment, the way the world is right now, with a digital world and everything is possible in that way, I think I would choose Curacao or Miami.
Miami?
Yeah, well, Miami I've learned lately, because I feel like I'm in the border of, or I don't know if the border is the right word, but I love the city life and I love the island life, right?
Sure.
Most of my work right now that I'm trying to manifest is in America. So being realistically, I'm like, Miami is beachy, but it's city. It's still America. I'm like 1 flight, 2 hours from the island my dad is from. I can go straight to Amsterdam. I'm easy in New York, easy in LA. It's kind of in the middle of everything. So I would say or Miami or Curacao, because it's just the best island ever.
Have you ever been to Hawaii or the southern islands of Thailand?
I've been to Thailand. I've not been to the islands, but I've been to Thailand itself. And I've not been to Hawaii, but I actually this morning was talking to a friend because we might go next year.
Hawaii is incredible. But in comparison, I actually think the southern islands of Thailand are the cooler version of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because Hawaii is kind of commercialized already.
Yeah.
Right? There's paved roads everywhere and McDonald's everywhere.
Hooters,
and all these tourists. Yeah, exactly. It's got all that stuff. Versus like Thailand, you see a little bit of it on certain islands, but there's so many of them. And but it's still like, mountains and it looks similar to Hawaii, except there's more islands, less people, more authentic.
Yeah.
Granted, the weather's only good a few months of the year, but highly suggest, if you ever get a chance, definitely suggest you go to Thailand.
Yeah.
I want to get into the book. which obviously we have here today. So you were on tour. You went back to, how do I keep mispronouncing? Curacao? Curacao. Okay,
Yeah.
so you went down there, and it was 6 months it took you, right, before this book was done. How long were you down there before you actually started writing it? And can you summarize the process of like writing the book?
Yes, so I actually was 10 days down there.
Okay.
And then I wrote it in 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks I wrote it. And I tell you exactly why it was 6 weeks, because we had a 6 weeks extreme lockdown. And I was like, I know myself, I love to party, I like to go out and all this stuff. And I was like, as soon as this lockdown stops, I want to just be out on the beach and do my thing. So I don't want to procrastinate this. Let me just get it out. And because I was in such a flow, it just went through me and it went really quickly. And then actually it took me another, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months before it actually became a book.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot longer. People think, I have people give advice all the time to me, which it's always from a good place. So I'm always like, thank you. But they always tell me what they think I should do. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea how much work that is.
No.
Like, I want to, if I could, I would. It's just, there's so much more to it. Right. What were some of the struggles with writing the book? Well, for one, have you written anything before, really?
No, but I did write a blog when I was on cruise ships.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of gave me the confidence to write a book, because back then people would be like, oh, I really enjoy the way you're writing this or telling the story. And I kind of just, it was an experiment.
Yeah.
And basically my book is called Solo Jump, but this was my solo jump. I was just trying it out and seeing where I was going to go. And suddenly I have this book on the table that people actually bought and are reading.
Yeah, it's really hard to make that transition, right? Because it becomes your identity, whatever you do for such a long period of time. So I started skating when I was like 9 or 10, something like that. And I was never like a professional skateboarder. It's not like it was that way, but that's what I did. And I stayed in the same town. Like, I'm a super townie. I've traveled, but I love where I live. And for a reason, it's an awesome city. But anyway, so I know most of the people in town, and they all know me for skateboarding, because I in high school I skateboarded all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then I opened my shop when I was 23. I'm 31, so I've owned the skateboard shop in the community for quite a while. When I started my podcast, I had people tell me, "Yeah, I would listen, but I don't skate." I'm like, surprisingly enough, it's not about skateboarding. And then I had people, "Oh, well, I would listen, but I don't live in Eau Claire, my city." And I'm like, surprisingly enough, it's not about Eau Claire either. And they're like,
"What?
Really?" You know? And so trying to like get people to understand that, hey, there's more to who I am and what I do than just this. And I didn't know I was going to be good at it.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know this was something naturally. And once I like took a step back and thought about it, it was like, okay, well, I've been playing a mentorship type role to kids, you know, in my store for years. I've spoken on mic for years because I throw lots of events and stuff. So I already kind of do that. I've been talking to people for a living because I've been doing sales since I was 16.
Wow.
Like I kind of have all these skills to do exactly what this is. I didn't realize that was it, but it was like, okay, this is something that I can do. And slowly now people are starting to like recognize this is kind of, you know, what Chris does. But it was a weird transition, and it's still a transition. How was the transition for you to go from like everyone just knows you as a dancer specifically to all of a sudden now having a voice, you know, maybe through a book, but still like people are listening to your voice rather than just watching?
Yeah. Well, the most important part is, again, you have to allow yourself to make that identity switch first, because in the beginning, like, I was scared to even say I'm an author now. I was like, oh my God, who am I? But making that switch was actually, I had to make the switch, and then other people will be like, oh my God, yeah, she is an author. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And I think that's the same now with me saying, I'm a speaker, I'm a life coach. It's me owning that identity. And I actually learned too that the moment you step into this new identity, everything else will follow. Like your behavior will automatically change, your values will change, your habits will change, because you want to embrace that new identity. So as soon as you basically say, this is what I'm going to do, or this is who I am, or I'm the type of person who writes books, you go, wow, okay, so I guess I need to bring a notebook now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting, but I think it's also amazing that we as humans are actually we have so many things to offer. And what I learned through the years too is it's so important to have role models. That's why I think it's so cool that you're doing this, because once you see that somebody else is doing different things or doing certain things that you maybe didn't even think of, you're expanding somebody else's world to maybe be like, oh my God, I can do that too. Like, I didn't know 10 years ago that life coaching was a thing. And when my mom would ask me, what are you gonna do if you can't dance? I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, you like to like help people. And I was like, so what am I gonna do? How am I gonna get paid to help people? And now everybody's a life coach, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
we need inspiring model people to just expand our mindsets.
Yeah. Well, so there's two things to that. You talked before about, we were talking earlier about your mom not really understanding what you're doing. Same with my dad. I want to quick say something about that. The world is evolving at a faster rate than ever. Your parents and my parents couldn't do what we do before because that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're at least aware, like, hey, the world's evolving. There's unlimited opportunity to do literally anything from anywhere. And those opportunities are evolving fast, meaning the opportunities that are here today, there's going to be so many more tomorrow,
Yeah.
and the day after that and the day after that. So we really can go do anything. And something you think you can't do right now, it's very possible that's going to be available like soon. And then talking about being inspired by people that are like mentors and inspirations, like look at simple things like the Netflix show Queen's Gambit.
I haven't
right?
seen it, but
Okay,
yeah.
well, it was like the biggest show for I don't know, a year ago or whatever. But it's about chess.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a Netflix series about chess. Chess boards, 10x in sales.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to play. I've
Suddenly,
noticed
right?
that about myself, right? Like I watch a show about running. All of a sudden, I'm like, I should start running. You know what I mean? Like we all know like that is a thing
Yeah.
that exists. So
Yeah.
when you can actually recognize how that works and then
Yeah.
intentionally do that,
Yeah.
put these people in front of you that you're inspired by, read a book that you want to take those actions,
Yeah.
whether it's coaching or whatever, if you can actually try to do that on purpose, you can see how much you can get going with all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, you have to be this, one thing I've found, you have to have business sense as well as be good at what you do. You kind of have to have both. You have to understand how to market. One thing I've seen with artists and with a lot of people who are really, really talented is they're too modest in a way that they don't want to tell people that what they do is good because they don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? But the problem is if you don't tell people about what you're doing, if you don't believe in it enough to tell people that
Yeah.
this is really cool, this is helpful, this is whatever, they're not ever going to discover it.
No.
Like you have to build that confidence and be your own fan in a kind
Yeah.
of way, not to like pat your own back constantly, but really believe like, hey, I put 100% of myself into this. This was my best work I can possibly do at that point in time. Say this book. Yeah, maybe you can write a better book in 5 years, who knows? But at the time, that was the absolute best you can do. You have to believe in that and
Yeah.
tell people that.
Yeah.
That's the only way that they're going to start to believe
True.
in it, right?
And people would only want to invest in something if they really feel like you love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so stoked to be able to read this book. We're going to do a giveaway with the book when the episode does eventually come out. I'm not positive when this is coming, so I am excited for that. The life coaching thing, what's kind of next? I know that's coming up, but like you have to finish a few things before the life coaching thing happens. Kind of how do you envision where life's going to be in the next 3-6 months, whatever?
It's going to be very different.
Yeah.
I'm launching actually 3 programs. So one is a 4-day program, which I'm launching in January. And then one is a 4-week program and one is an 8-week program. And it basically, how I say it, like my 4-day program is how to get a positive mindset. I call it the Positive Mindset Challenge. My 4-week program is how to become a glow-getter, because I'm all about being a go-getter with a glow. And then my 8-week program is how to get to solo jumping. So I explain to people, if you have a wish or a desire or a dream, but you're basically sitting on the edge and you're looking for life hacks and tools to actually get you up to jumping, that's what the program is going to do. And it's literally going to dive deep. I'm not going to throw all these tools at you. It's literally you working with the superpowers that you have. So your manifestation skills, your intuition, learning how to work with flow and not against it. And then the mindset, subconscious mind, how it works, how you can like redirect your autopilot so it's actually going to work for you and benefits you.
Sure.
And stuff like that.
How did you learn how to do that? Are there certain other people you're using as examples to kind of pick from to help you build this together? And then what does the program look like? Is it a lot of one-on-one like Zoom things? Is it a lot of like like practices you're sending them that are like, PDFs they're following, and like kind of explain it?
So I have an idea about the big ones, but the first one I literally just finished up. So it's going to be videos and then a workbook and then challenges and exercises. And it also is going to have one meditation. It's a smaller one. And I just send it to you, and it's totally your responsibility for the change and for the value of it. And then the 4-week one and the 8-week one, it's going to be group sessions. So Zoom calls, also videos, also audios, workbooks, and a lot of practices, because the thing is nowadays you can find anything anywhere, right? Everybody can go on YouTube, everybody can go on Google, but it's actually putting in the work into action and holding yourself accountable is what's going to get you there, right? So
Sure.
my program is mainly creating a group that's holding each other accountable and actually talking about your experiences, having the self-reflection and putting in the work, so you're actually gonna get somewhere. Because nowadays I feel like everybody's like, oh, I know that already, I know how that works, everybody knows how it works, but nobody's doing it.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, you
Or
can
not
learn
everybody.
so many things from YouTube. It's about actually taking those actions and being disciplined.
Exactly.
Right. And towards like getting towards those things. So you're obviously not going on tours then, right? But you still want to include dance because there's only so much you can do with splitting your time up.
Yeah, well, the dream life is for me is that I book a tour beginning next year. I finish my programs, everything before, like doing most of the work. So basically, if I'm on tour, I can go 3 times a day on a Zoom call and still coach and do all that. But all the material, all the pre-work, I'm want to do in the next couple of months.
Oh, okay.
So it's mainly going to be checking in and reevaluating and answering questions and guiding and being the accountability partner. But all the material with all the knowledge that I'm spreading around is all happening right now.
And then you're going to have way too many emails and way too many things to respond to every
Yes,
day to try
and
to
then I
like,
get an assistant.
handle. Yeah, that's where it needs to get to. At some point, I have to get that way with the show. Thankfully, my friend Jake's here doing some video stuff. I need help. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can handle the Instagram. I can handle doing like getting a hold of guests and doing interviews. Who's going to do my editing?
Right.
Like, I don't have time to do all that. What about my Patreon? What about
Yeah.
YouTube? And I'm like,
The scariest part is always like trusting that somebody else is going to do the work, right? But actually, your work gets done way better when you actually get somebody who is only focusing on that instead of you trying to be like, I can do this and I can do this and I can do this.
I have a really hard time letting go of control of things because
Yeah.
I like envision it a certain way. And if
Yeah.
I put 100% of my time into it, I know how it would come out.
Yeah.
And I'm really hard on myself, but
Yeah.
that translates into other people too.
Yeah.
There's a reason I work for myself. Like
Yeah.
I love
I hear
being
you.
around people, but I have a hard time working with other people. So
Well, I can
I'm like, on my
hypnotize
way.
you and help you let go of that responsibility of just feeling like you have to.
You learned how to do
Yes, also.
When did you learn how to do that?
Also with my course that I'm doing right now. So hopefully in 3 weeks I get my certification. So by the time this is out, I'll be also a hypnotist
Can you do
practitioner.
it via Zoom?
Yes, I can.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God, we're gonna have to do this.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I'm gonna
I'm
be able to
actually
get
doing our
perfect.
friend Marcus tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ask him how it is afterwards. I was
Yes.
hoping to like meet up with him this week.
Yeah,
Okay,
do.
so we're getting towards the end of the show. I always like to ask this because I refer to the show as an inspirational storytelling show.
Yeah.
And the whole point is to kind of like get the listener to like listen to whoever the guest is / myself as well and go, okay, well these people are very relatable. They're kind of my peers. They're doing these things because of these reasons, right? We share stories about like that are meaningful to us. It's not about money. It's not about like, okay, well, I got promoted and now I have stability, because those really aren't the reasons why, you pursue these types of careers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I always ask the guests to share a unique experience, something specific that happened to you that you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to go this kind of path.
Well, I'm going to say my book, because it's like the unique experience is the pandemic. Who would have thought that would happen?
Sure.
I have to say, because I'm 31, I always knew that I wouldn't be able to dance all my life. But because of the pandemic, I was basically forced to think of other things. And I have to say, the passion I feel nowadays in being able to work on this new project and hopefully like continue inspiring people, helping people, guiding people to also live their dreams, it's giving me such a new warm energy inside my body that I was like, wait, I thought I could only get this from dance or love. And now I found this basically new passion / love that I might have never discovered, or maybe not this soon if it wasn't for the pandemic. So something very dramatic, like I basically lost my career that I worked for 30 years. It was my soul and my heart and my passion, everything. But now I'm so driven to do this new thing.
That's kind of the cool thing about being an entrepreneur in general.
Yeah.
Like we're doing contracts working for other people, but really it was yourself that
Yeah.
you worked for, right? Is you have unlimited potential to do anything you want. You don't have anyone telling you have to do anything because you don't have
Yeah.
an exact job description. You
Yeah.
just have skill sets and you need to make money. So it's like
Yeah.
that opportunity's over there.
Well
like,
said.
you just said that you saw that mural, I posted on my Instagram. I never really thought I would get paid to paint murals.
Yeah.
I just painted because I wanted to. But everything else that I do kind of is all like entangled within it.
Yeah.
You know, it just
Well
like
said.
allows all those types of opportunities, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I think we learn easiest from mistakes, and I've made a lot of mistakes, unfortunately, whether it was investing in the wrong project or in the wrong products or whatever for my store that just like didn't move, or like
Yeah.
having my computer crash and losing episodes, or like I've had like a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
But those are the times that all of a sudden you learn things from, right?
I call it like, I really hate the word mistake.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to change failure into feedback.
Sure.
As in, like, it's never a failure. It's always feedback. It's always like you learn something from it.
As long as you can look at it from that mindset of say, okay, well, what am I going to be better at now because of it?
Exactly.
You know, but I do think that those are the biggest like ways that we can learn and progress. And hopefully people can listen to this show and they can see what other people's feedback, you know, things that they did, whatever, they can see from those lessons, and hopefully they can learn some of them that way rather than having to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Anyways, can you share a story about, so maybe not a mistake, but something that happened to you or whatever that taught you something valuable that somebody listening might be able to benefit from?
Well, the thing is, because I have this mindset, it's a hard thing to think, what kind of mistakes did I make? But for me, for example, if I look back, I chose to go to New York, and it took me 2 years to get my visa. While I was in LA right now, I figured out if I would have gone to LA, I probably would have got my visa in 2 months, because it's way more, everybody's supporting way more the dancers here from other countries. And so I can look back and go, oh my God, did I really just waste 2 years of my life that I was just investing in going on coffee dates and just talking to people, trying to convince them to help me? Well, if I would have gone to LA, I would have been here 2 years earlier. But looking back now, the people I met back then, the experiences, all the stories, everything out there, me putting myself out there, it actually helped me build who I am today. It helped me build in my confidence. It helped me build believing in my skills. And I strongly believe that I needed that experience so I could come to LA and be like, I'm ready to take over the world. You know what I mean? So something that could have been seen as a big fat mistake, like, oh, damn, you lost 2 years. I don't see it that way, because I created this family in New York that I love so much, and they just fulfill my heart with the love and the energy and the friendships they are giving me. And meanwhile, if I think back about everything in the last 10 years, my biggest moment of growth was actually New York.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I take away from it, right? Because I've seen these things happen in my own life. One is recognizing that everything is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Everything's a learning opportunity. Just because it's not necessarily the thing you thought you needed to learn in this moment doesn't mean it isn't valuable.
Yeah.
You might learn that thing you're learning right now, that relationship you're building right now, that may be huge for you in some other kind of way later on.
Yeah.
Like I said with this show, I never thought that speaking on an event skateboard event, I didn't even plan it. I threw my first skateboard contest and I was like, who's going to be on the mic? I don't have anyone okay, I guess I'm going to do it, you know, and I didn't like public speaking. So I never thought that was going to be helpful to me later on in life. And then here it is, right? So like being aware that all of these things, everything's a stepping stone, as long as you look at it as like a way to learn. The other thing is I try to tell people, especially in the business world, you want to like maintain your vision. That is important to maintain a vision of what you're trying to do, but you can't be so stubborn, because sometimes things don't work the way you want them to work.
Yeah.
And there's a million reasons why that could be. Sometimes you have to be able to kind of go with the flow of what is working.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go in that kind of, that kind of way. I'm not saying you didn't by staying in New York, but just having that open mindset of saying, well, I do want to do this. I know where my end goal is. I think this is the path, but when you reach it, reach a roadblock, understanding that you don't necessarily have to keep going that direction.
Yeah.
There are other ways to get there.
Yeah. And again, what we spoke about in the beginning, like that part of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Figuring out what is your why, right? Because sometimes you do realize, oh, I'm only doing this because my neighbor is doing this, or because this person told me to do this. And now that I keep hitting my head, I'm realizing I really don't even really like doing this. So it's all those moments of basically like you're stuck for a second. It's the best moment to go, do I still want this? Why do I want this? But what if I change the direction? Is it going to help me? Is it going to benefit me?
Yeah, well, I always say that exact thing about money specifically. I try to tell people, you don't want money. There's literally no reason why you would want money. You don't. You want whatever money's bringing you.
Yeah.
Right? You want that house or you
Yeah.
want to live in that area, or you want the respect from this person, or whatever it is, but it's actually not money.
Just paper.
Right, exactly. But that's what it is, right? Is you
Yeah.
have to look, okay, well, what is the actual goal? And
Yeah.
stepping back, and like meditation helps with that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Stepping back and really reflecting is how you can kind of
Yeah.
find the, how to get there.
Yeah, and also realizing that money is energy, right? It's
Sure.
actually another form of energy. Because basically, like we just said, you need somebody to edit this. You're
Yep.
basically saying, I need you to put in your energy, and I'm paying you with this energy. And
Sure.
by accident, this energy is money.
Sure.
So I don't have to give you my energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but the
yeah.
cool part is there's like a lot of ways to get there.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to pay that person. You can find a trade.
Of course,
Or something.
yeah.
Like there's other ways to reach it, which is always kind of
Yeah.
exciting. So thank you so much for sharing that. We're at the end of the show. I always like to ask, now that we're at the end, one more time, shout out where people can kind of find you, where they can see your stuff. Also, how can people best support you moving forward?
So you can find me on my website, solangezindzi.com. How to best support me, I would say listen to my audiobook, listen to this podcast, talk about it to people, do your research, because I feel like supporting me would also be supporting yourself, right? So it fills my heart. I'm realizing when people are actually living their dreams. So as long as you do that, you're supporting me in a way. And if you want to figure out how to do it quicker, come do my course and find it on my website and keep believing in yourself.
Wonderful. Yeah, to support the
Yeah.
show, there's so many ways to do it too, which is cool. Sending an encouraging message is the super easy, free way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like go to your website, hit contact us and say, hey, I don't have the
Yeah.
money right now, but I listened to this show. This was dope. I'm really excited about your journey and everything else. Like
Yeah.
there is so many ways to support it. Easiest way for me, passionpod.org is my website. All kinds of info on there. There's lots of stuff you can order and you can buy. There's a Patreon for the show, so you can subscribe to it. And there's benefits with bonus episodes and all kinds of different stuff. But again, sending encouraging messages, telling people about the show, telling people about this episode or about everything you're doing at the book. Those are all ways to support too.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.